"Security, I need you to escort this gentleman out. He's clearly confused about where he belongs." Marcus's voice carried across the marble lobby of Pinnacle Tower, loud enough for the dozen investors milling near the elevators to turn and stare. His hand gestured dismissively toward me, his father-in-law standing there in my 20-year-old Carhartt jacket and worn jeans. "This is a private investor presentation. We can't have random people wandering in off the street." The security guard, a young man who looked uncomfortable with the situation, stepped forward. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." I stayed calm, keeping my hands visible, non-threatening. Behind Marcus, I could see his colleagues from Grandview Development Corporation, slick young men in $1,000 suits, clutching their overpriced lattes and smirking at the show. Marcus himself wore a navy Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment back when I had a mortgage. "Marcus," I said quietly, "your wife is expecting me for dinner tonight. I just wanted to stop by, and my wife has nothing to do with this." He cut me off, his face reddening. "This is my workplace, my professional environment, and I won't have it compromised by he." Paused, searching for words that wouldn't sound too cruel in front of witnesses. "By family dropping in unannounced. It's unprofessional." The security guard's hand was on my elbow now, gentle but firm. I could have resisted. I could have said something. But I'd learned a long time ago in the oil fields of northern Alberta that sometimes the smartest move is to let people underestimate you. "My apologies," I said, meeting Marcus's eyes. "I didn't mean to embarrass you." As the guard walked me toward the exit, I heard one of Marcus's colleagues laugh. "Jesus, Marcus, where does your family shop? The Salvation Army?" More laughter. Marcus didn't defend me. He joined in. I'll admit, that stung more than I expected. But pain can be useful if you let it sharpen your focus instead of cloud your judgment. And I had a lot to focus on. Let me back up and explain how I ended up there. My name is William Cartwright. I'm 64 years old, and for the past 3 years, I've lived in a modest bungalow in Calgary's Brentwood neighborhood. I drive a 2006 Ford F-150 with 230,000 kilometers on it. My idea of a fancy dinner is the all-you-can-eat buffet at the Golden Palace on Edmonton Trail. I wear jeans and flannel shirts almost exclusively, and I get my hair cut at the same barbershop I've gone to for 20 years, where they charge $16 and don't try to sell you product. To look at me, you'd think I was just another retired tradesman living on a pension, maybe doing the occasional side job to supplement my income. And honestly, that's exactly what I wanted people to think. The truth was considerably different, but that truth was something I'd spent decades keeping private. I have one daughter, Sarah. She's 36, smart as a whip, got her degree in environmental science from UBC. She married Marcus Thornhill 5 years ago in a wedding that cost more than my first house. I didn't pay for it, Marcus's family did, but I attended and smiled and shook hands and tried to ignore the nagging feeling in my gut that something wasn't quite right about the man. 3 weeks before that incident at Pinnacle Tower, I'd driven out to Vancouver to visit Sarah and my 2 grandchildren, Emma and Jack. It's a 10-hour drive from Calgary if you don't stop much, and I'd made it dozens of times. Usually I stayed at a budget hotel near their place in Kitsilano, but Sarah had insisted I stay with them this time. "Dad, it's silly to pay for a hotel when we have a guest room," she'd said on the phone. "Marcus is away on business half the week anyway. We'd love to have you." There was something in her voice, though, a tightness I recognized from when she was a teenager, trying to hide something from me. I pulled up to their house on a drizzly Tuesday afternoon. It was one of those renovated heritage homes in Kits, the kind with the big front porch and the maple tree out front. Worth at least $2.5 million, easy. Marcus had bought it 4 years ago, right after he made partner at Grandview Development. Emma and Jack came running out before I'd even turned off the truck. They were 8 and 6, full of energy, already talking over each other about school and soccer, and the new video game they wanted. I hugged them both, noting that Jack's jacket had a tear in the sleeve, and Emma's sneakers were worn down almost to nothing. Kids are hard on clothes, I told myself. Doesn't mean anything. But then Sarah came out, and I saw the shadows under her eyes, the way her smile didn't quite reach them, the slight tremor in her hands as she hugged me. "Hi, Dad. How was the drive?" "Long but good. Traffic wasn't bad through the mountains. We went inside, and I noticed more things. The living room furniture was expensive. I recognized the leather couch from the restoration hardware catalog Sarah had showed me years ago, $12,000 for the sectional alone. But there were water stains on the ceiling in the corner that needed attention. The hardwood floors needed refinishing. Small things, maintenance things that should have been handled immediately in a house this valuable. That evening, after the kids were in bed, Sarah and I sat in the kitchen drinking tea. She was nursing a mug of chamomile, staring into it like she could read the future in the leaves. "Dad, I need to tell you something." I waited, letting the silence stretch. I'd learned that lesson raising her. Sometimes people need space to find their words. "Marcus and I are having some trouble." "Financial trouble?" That surprised me. Marcus drove a 2-year-old BMW 7 Series. He wore watches that cost more than most people's cars. He'd taken Sarah and the kids to Maui last Christmas, stayed at the Grand Wailea, posted pictures on Facebook of them drinking Mai Tais by the infinity pool. "What kind of trouble?" She took a breath. "He borrowed against the house, twice. We're leveraged pretty heavily. And last month, he asked me to take out a line of credit against my inheritance from Mom. My late wife, Catherine, had left Sarah a modest inheritance when she passed 8 years ago. Nothing huge, about $150,000, but it was Sarah's safety net, her independence. "Did you?" "Not yet. But he's been pushing. Says it's just temporary, until a big development deal closes. He says we'll make it all back, plus more." I kept my face neutral, but inside, alarm bells were ringing. "How much does he need?" "80,000. And if you say no..." Her eyes filled with tears. "He gets angry. Not violent or anything, but cold. He'll sleep at his office for days. Won't talk to me. Makes me feel like I'm being unsupportive, like I don't believe in him." Classic manipulation. I'd seen it before in business, watched men leverage guilt and affection to get what they wanted. But seeing it done to my daughter made something cold and hard settle in my chest. "Sarah, sweetheart, you don't have to give him anything you're not comfortable with." I know that intellectually. But I'm scared, Dad. If I say no, what happens to us? To the kids? He says we could lose the house. I spent the next 2 days at their place, watching, noticing. Marcus came home late both nights, smelling of expensive scotch and cigars. He barely acknowledged the children, didn't ask about their day. When he spoke to Sarah, it was mostly orders. "Can you grab my dry cleaning tomorrow? Make sure you transfer $500 to my personal account. I need you to call the contractor about the basement renovation and tell him we're postponing." On Thursday morning, Marcus left early for a breakfast meeting. I offered to drive Emma and Jack to school, and Sarah gratefully accepted. As we drove, I asked casual questions. "So what do you guys want for your birthdays?" "I want new cleats," Emma said from the back seat. "Mine have holes in them and water gets in when it rains." "Why don't you ask your parents for new ones?" Silence. Then Jack, in his 6-year-old wisdom. "Dad says we need to learn the value of money. He says kids these days are too spoiled." I glanced in the rearview mirror at them, both wearing jackets that were slightly too small, like they'd been bought last year and never replaced. Meanwhile, I'd seen Marcus's closet. Rows of designer suits, a dozen pairs of handmade Italian shoes, a watch collection in a custom display case. After I dropped the kids off, I sat in my truck in the school parking lot and made a decision. I pulled out my phone and called a number I hadn't dialed in 5 years. Sutherland Investigations. "Ken, it's Will Cartwright." A pause. "Will? Hell, I thought you'd retired to a beach somewhere. What can I do for you?" "I need you to look into someone. Quietly, thoroughly, and I need it fast." "Who?" "My son-in-law." I gave him Marcus's details. Full name Marcus Theodore Thornhill. Age 38. Partner at Grandview Development Corporation. Home address, vehicle information. Ken said he'd have preliminary findings within 48 hours. I spent the rest of that day being the doting grandfather, taking Emma and Jack to the park, buying them new sneakers at Sport Check without making a big deal of it, listening to their stories about school and friends and all the small dramas of childhood that feel enormous when you're 8 or 6. That evening, while Sarah was helping the kids with homework, I excused myself and walked around the neighborhood. It was one of those perfect Vancouver autumn evenings. The air crisp and clean, the mountains visible in the distance. Beautiful houses lined the streets, heritage homes renovated to perfection, young families visible through lit windows, BMWs and Teslas in every driveway. I thought about my own life, the choices I'd made. I grew up in a small town outside of Red Deer, the son of a mechanic who worked himself to death by 55. I'd put myself through the Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, gotten a diploma in petroleum engineering, and gone to work in the oil fields. The work was brutal. 16-hour days in 40 below weather, weeks away from home, dangerous conditions that killed or maimed men regularly. But I was good at it, and I was smart, and I noticed things others didn't. In my late 20s, I developed a modification to standard drilling equipment that reduced breakdown frequency by 30%. I'd partnered with another engineer, a guy named Tom Breswick, and we'd patented the technology. Then we'd licensed it to 3 major drilling companies. The royalties started at a trickle and became a flood. By the time I was 40, I was making more from the patents than from my day job. By 50, Tom and I had sold our entire patent portfolio to a multinational corporation for $43 million. My share was $22 million. I'd kept working another 5 years anyway, because I loved the work and didn't know what else to do with myself. After Catherine died, I'd finally retired, moved to the bungalow in Calgary, and settled into a quiet life. I'd given Sarah $100,000 for her wedding, anonymously, through her mother's estate. I'd set up trust funds for Emma and Jack that they'd access when they turned 25. I'd donated millions to scholarships and trade programs, but I'd never told Sarah the full extent of my wealth. Why? Because I'd seen what money did to people. I'd watched friends' children become entitled, lazy, incapable of appreciating the value of work. I'd seen families torn apart fighting over inheritances. I wanted Sarah to build her own life, make her own choices, not rely on her old man's money. But watching her struggle now, watching my grandchildren wear worn-out shoes while their father drove a car worth more than most people's annual salary, I wondered if I'd made the right choice. Ken called me Friday morning. "Will, you're going to want to sit down for this." I was in my hotel room. I'd moved out of Sarah's place that morning, claiming I needed my own space, not wanting to upset the household routine. "I'm sitting. What have you got? Your son-in-law is a mess. Financial mess, ethical mess, possibly criminal mess. Start from the top. Marcus Thornhill is drowning in debt. He owes $384,000 across 9 credit cards, 2 personal loans, and 1 line of credit. The house is mortgaged for $2.1 million, way over what it was purchased for. He's 60 days behind on the BMW payments. He's maxed out his corporate credit card and is under internal investigation at Grandview Development." I felt my jaw tighten. What kind of investigation? Appears he's been using company funds for personal expenses, charging luxury vacations as client development, billing dinners at high-end restaurants as business meetings when his colleagues say they weren't there. The firm is doing a quiet audit before deciding whether to file charges or just terminate him. Anything else? Ken hesitated. There's a woman, Victoria Chen, 29, works as a marketing consultant. Marcus has been seeing her for about 8 months. Takes her to hotels, expensive restaurants, uses cash for most of it. But we tracked his movements through parking receipts and credit card statements from nearby businesses. The infidelity didn't surprise me as much as it should have. Men who deceive in one area of life rarely limit themselves. Send me everything, every document, every receipt, every photo. Will, what are you going to do? What I should have done 5 years ago. Protect my daughter. The files arrived in my email within an hour. I spent the afternoon reviewing them, and the picture they painted was worse than I'd imagined. Marcus wasn't just living beyond his means, he was running a sophisticated scheme of deception. He'd borrowed from Peter to pay Paul, used balance transfers to hide debt from Sarah, taken out secret credit cards in his own name. He'd forged her signature on at least 2 loan applications. He'd borrowed $50,000 from her mother's inheritance without her knowledge, accessing the account through a joint power of attorney she'd signed when they bought the house. But the piece that made my blood boil was the pattern of psychological manipulation. Text messages where he belittled her concerns, called her paranoid and controlling when she asked about money. Emails to his mistress where he mocked Sarah as provincial and unsophisticated, saying he'd married her because she had potential but needed refinement. I saved the most damning documents to a password-protected folder. Then I made another call, this one to my financial advisor in Calgary. Robert, it's Will Cartwright. I need to set up some investments in Vancouver, commercial real estate, development projects. I want to go in as a silent partner, significant capital, but I want absolute discretion. How significant are we talking? 10 to 15 million to start. More if the opportunities are right. Robert didn't even pause. He'd been managing my money for 20 years and had learned not to question my strategies. I'll put together a proposal by Monday. Any particular sector? Mixed-use development? High-end residential? And Robert? I want to specifically look at projects by Grandview Development Corporation. Now, Robert paused. Will, are you sure? They're reputable, but there's been some rumors lately about internal issues. I'm counting on it. That Saturday, I took Sarah and the kids to the aquarium. Marcus claimed he had to work, which gave me time alone with my daughter. As we watched Emma and Jack press their faces against the glass of the jellyfish exhibit, I asked her, "How are you really doing?" She didn't answer right away. We walked slowly through the underwater tunnel, surrounded by sharks and rays gliding overhead. "I feel like I'm drowning," she finally said. "Like every day I'm treading water and the waves keep getting bigger." "Has he asked you again about the money?" "Every day. This morning he said if I really loved him, I'd trust him. He says I'm sabotaging our future, that I'm too risk-averse, that I don't understand high-level finance." I wanted to tell her everything then. Show her the investigation results, expose Marcus for the fraud he was, take her and the kids back to Calgary where I could protect them. But I'd learned patience in the oil fields. Rush a job, and people get hurt. Better to do it right, even if it takes longer. "Sarah, I want you to promise me something. Don't sign anything, don't transfer any money, don't make any financial decisions without talking to a lawyer first. Not me, not Marcus. An independent lawyer." She looked at me with those eyes that still reminded me of her mother. "Dad, what do you know? I know that you deserve better than feeling like you're drowning. And I know that sometimes the people we love aren't who we thought they were." Monday morning, I got the call I'd been waiting for. Robert had fast-tracked the analysis. "Will, I've got something interesting. Grandview Development is looking for investors in a major mixed-use project in downtown Vancouver. They need $15 million to complete the financing. The project's solid waterfront location, pre-sold units, good projections. But they're desperate. Word is their original investor pulled out after discovering some irregularities in their bookkeeping." "What kind of irregularities?" "The kind where a partner might be skimming funds for personal use." "Perfect. Set up a meeting. I want to meet with the senior partners, this week if possible." "Under what name?" "My own. William Cartwright, representing Cartwright Capital. It was a shell corporation I'd set up years ago for exactly these kinds of investments. Perfectly legal, completely private." "Will, they're going to do due diligence on you. I'm counting on it." The meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. at Pinnacle Tower, Grandview Development's headquarters. Robert emailed me the details, along with briefing documents on the project and the firm's structure. I spent Tuesday and Wednesday preparing. I reviewed every document about the Harborview Residences project, the development Grandview was pitching. I memorized the financial projections, studied the architectural plans, researched comparable properties. I wanted to come across as a serious investor, someone who knew what questions to ask. But I also did something else. I called Marcus directly. "Marcus, it's Will. I wanted to apologize for the other day, showing up at your office unannounced. That was inappropriate." He was silent for a moment, probably surprised I was calling. It's fine, Will. I may have overreacted. Things are just stressful at work right now. I understand. Actually, I'm going to be in Vancouver this week. I was wondering if maybe we could grab coffee, clear the air. This week's not great for me. We've got a major investor presentation Thursday. And no problem, no problem. Some other time then. Good luck with the presentation. I hung up, smiling. Thursday it was. Thursday morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went shopping. Not at my usual places, the Mark's Work Warehouse and the Walmart, but at Harry Rosen in downtown Calgary. The sales associate, a young man named David, looked skeptical when I walked in, wearing my usual jeans and flannel. Can I help you find something? I need a suit. Something appropriate for a business meeting. Not too flashy, but quality. His skepticism vanished when I specified my budget. 2 hours later, I walked out wearing a charcoal Brioni suit, white Eton shirt, burgundy Hermes tie, and black Church's Oxfords. The total was just over $8,000. I felt ridiculous, like a kid playing dress-up, but David assured me I looked distinguished. I drove to Vancouver that afternoon, checked into the Fairmont Pacific Rim under my own name, and arrived at Pinnacle Tower at 1:45 p.m., 15 minutes early. The building was one of those glass and steel towers that had gone up during the development boom, all soaring ceilings and marble floors and abstract art that probably cost more than it should. The receptionist on the 20th floor looked up as I approached. "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" "William Cartwright. I have a 2 o'clock with Mr. Patterson and Mr. Zhao." She checked her computer, smiled professionally. "Of course, Mr. Cartwright. They're just finishing up another meeting. Can I offer you coffee or water while you wait?" "Water would be great, thank you." She handed me a bottle of San Pellegrino and directed me to a seating area with a view of False Creek. I sat, observing. The office was impressive, floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, photos of completed developments on the walls. Through a glass-walled conference room, I could see Marcus and 3 other young men in suits, pointing at a presentation screen, laughing. At 1:55, Marcus emerged from the conference room, still laughing at something one of his colleagues had said. He was wearing another expensive suit. This one looked like Armani, and his hair was artfully styled. He was mid-sentence when he saw me. His face went through several expressions in quick succession: confusion, recognition, disbelief, panic. He recovered quickly, but not before I saw all of it. "Will, what are you doing here?" I stood, extended my hand. "Marcus, good to see you." He shook my hand automatically, his brain clearly trying to process why his father-in-law, who he'd had security escort out of this very building a week ago, was now sitting in his office's VIP waiting area, wearing an $8,000 suit. Before he could formulate a response, the receptionist spoke up. "Mr. Thornhill, Mr. Patterson, and Mr. Zhao are ready for their 2 o'clock. Marcus's eyes widened. "Their 2 o'clock?" The door to the corner office opened, and 2 men emerged. Richard Patterson was in his 60s, silver-haired, the kind of man who radiated authority. David Zhao was younger, maybe early 50s, sharp-eyed and precise. They were the founding partners of Grandview Development, and according to my research, they were also the ones conducting the internal investigation into Marcus. "Mr. Cartwright," Patterson extended his hand. "Richard Patterson. Pleasure to meet you. This is my partner, David Zhao." I shook both their hands. "Gentlemen, thank you for taking the time." Marcus was still standing there, frozen. Patterson glanced at him. "Marcus, don't you have that site inspection in Burnaby at 3? Yes, sir. But I thought, better get going then. Traffic's terrible this time of day." It was a dismissal, polite but firm. Marcus looked between me and his bosses, clearly wanting to say something, ask something, but unable to without revealing that he had no idea what was happening. Of course, he finally managed. "Mr. Cartwright, we should catch up later. Maybe dinner?" "Maybe," I said noncommittally. He left, and I could feel his eyes on me until the elevator doors closed. Patterson gestured toward the corner office. "Shall we?" The next 90 minutes were pure business. We reviewed the Harborview Residences project in detail. Patterson and Zhao were professional, thorough, clearly experienced at courting high-net-worth investors. They showed me architectural renderings, financial projections, pre-sale numbers, construction timelines. I asked pointed questions, the kind that showed I'd done my homework, about construction costs, about market absorption rates, about their partnership structure, about previous projects. Finally, Patterson sat back. Mr. Cartwright, I'll be honest. Your due diligence is impressive. You clearly know this business. So, let me ask you directly, what's your interest in Grandview? You could invest in any development in the city. Why us? I took a sip of the coffee they'd provided, much better than what I usually drank. I like the project. The location is excellent. The numbers make sense. And frankly, you need the capital more than other developers, which gives me leverage on terms. Zhao smiled slightly. Fair enough. And the fact that your son-in-law works here? So they'd done their homework too. Not a factor in my investment decision. Though I'll admit it's an interesting coincidence. Patterson and Zhao exchanged a glance. Then Patterson spoke carefully. Mr. Cartwright, I'm going to be frank with you. We're in the middle of some internal restructuring. There have been some irregularities in how certain funds were handled. We're addressing it, but I want you to know that before you commit capital. Irregularities involving Marcus? Patterson hesitated, then nodded. We can't discuss specifics while the investigation is ongoing. But I want to be transparent with a potential partner. I appreciate that. Can I ask, when do you expect the investigation to conclude? Within the next 2 weeks? And the capital you need for Harborview? We need it committed by next Friday to keep the project on schedule. I set down my coffee cup. Gentlemen, I'm prepared to commit $15 million to the Harborview project. But I have one condition. What's that? I want complete transparency on your internal investigation. All of it. And I want to be informed before any decisions are made regarding personnel changes. They exchanged another look. Zhao spoke this time. That's an unusual request, Mr. Cartwright. It's a substantial investment. And if there's fraud or embezzlement happening, I need to know that you're handling it properly before I trust you with my capital. Patterson nodded slowly. We can agree to that, with the understanding that the information is confidential. Of course. We shook hands. I'll have my lawyers draw up the partnership agreement. We'll include provisions for full disclosure regarding the investigation. As I was leaving, Patterson walked me to the elevators. Can I ask you something, Mr. Cartwright? Why didn't you mention your connection to Marcus when you first contacted us? Would it have changed your assessment of the investment opportunity? No. Then it wasn't relevant. My son-in-law's professional problems are separate from my investment decisions. The elevator arrived. As I stepped in, Patterson said, Mr. Cartwright, I think you know that if what we suspect is true, Marcus won't be with the firm much longer. I assumed as much. And you're still investing? I'm investing because the project is sound and you're competent managers. What happens to Marcus is between him and his conscience. The doors closed on Patterson's slight smile. I didn't go back to my hotel. Instead, I drove to Sarah's house. Marcus's BMW wasn't in the driveway. He was probably still sitting in traffic on his way to Burnaby, his mind racing with questions about what he'd just witnessed. Sarah answered the door, surprised. Dad, I thought you went back to Calgary. Can we talk? Just you and me? We sat at her kitchen table, the same place we'd had tea 2 weeks ago. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder Ken had sent me. Sarah, I need to show you something. It's going to be hard to look at. But you need to see it. Her face went pale. What is it? The truth about Marcus. I showed her everything. The debt, the affairs, the forged signatures, the embezzlement, the text messages mocking her. Every piece of evidence, laid out methodically, undeniably. She cried. I held her hand across the table, the way I'd done when she was little and had scraped her knee or been rejected by a friend. But this hurt went deeper than skinned knees. I'm so stupid, she finally said. You're not stupid. You're trusting. There's a difference. I should have seen it. He's very good at hiding it. Professional, even. She wiped her eyes. What do I do now? First, you protect yourself and the kids. Tomorrow, you go to a lawyer, I'll recommend one, and you start divorce proceedings. You document everything. You freeze any joint accounts he has access to. You change the locks. He'll fight me. Let him fight. You have evidence. He has debt and a mistress and possibly criminal charges coming. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time since I'd arrived. Dad, How did you afford to hire an investigator? How did you get all this information? I need to tell you something, Sarah. Something I should have told you a long time ago. I explained it all. The patents, the sale, the investments, the wealth I'd quietly accumulated over decades. Her eyes got wider with each revelation. You're a millionaire? Technically, yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to live your own life, make your own choices. I didn't want you to depend on me, or to choose a partner because of what I could provide. I wanted you to choose someone who would value you for you. Instead, I chose someone who only valued himself. You chose wrong this time. But you're going to choose differently next time, because now you know what to look for. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, what happens to Marcus now? His employers know about the embezzlement. They're investigating. When they're done, they'll either fire him or file charges. Probably both. And the investor meeting you had today? I'm putting $15 million into their development project. But not to help Marcus. To help ensure that when they fire him, the company is stable enough to survive. They're good people, Sarah. They don't deserve to lose everything because one of their partners is a thief. The next week moved quickly. Sarah met with a divorce lawyer, a sharp woman named Jennifer Chen who specialized in high-asset divorces. She filed the papers on Monday. Marcus was served on Tuesday at his office. He called me that evening, furious. What the hell did you do? Sarah's divorcing me. She has all these documents. These lies. Did you hire someone to spy on us? No lies, Marcus, just truth. And yes, I hired an investigator. You gave me plenty of reasons to. You had no right. I had every right. You forged my daughter's signature. You stole from her inheritance. And you've been lying to her for years. I'm surprised she waited this long. You don't understand business. Sometimes you have to leverage assets, take risks. I understand business perfectly well. I also understand fraud, embezzlement, and adultery. Your employers understand it too. How did that meeting with Patterson and Zhao go today? Silence. Then, you're the investor. The 15 million. That's you. Yes. You're sabotaging me. You came in there to make me look bad. Marcus, you made yourself look bad. I just made an investment in a solid development project. The fact that your employers are investigating you for stealing from the company? That's on you. I'll fight this. The divorce, the accusations, all of it. I'll get the best lawyers. With what money? Your $384,000 in debt? You're about to lose your job. And your wife has documentation of every illegal thing you've done. But sure, hire lawyers. Spend money you don't have. See how that works out for you. He hung up. I wasn't surprised. Friday afternoon, Patterson called me. Mr. Cartwright, I wanted to update you on our investigation. What did you find? Marcus Thornhill has been systematically stealing from the company for at least 2 years. We've documented over $200,000 in fraudulent expenses, unauthorized use of company funds, and falsified receipts. We're terminating him immediately and filing a criminal complaint with the police. Have you told him yet? Security is escorting him out as we speak. We've frozen his corporate accounts and revoked his access to all systems. What happens to his partnership stake? According to our partnership agreement, any partner terminated for cause forfeits their equity. It will be redistributed among remaining partners. So he gets nothing. Not quite nothing. He gets a criminal investigation and likely jail time. Couldn't happen to a better person. Patterson chuckled darkly. Mr. Cartwright, off the record, I'm glad Sarah has you in her corner. Marcus told several people here that her family was simple people who didn't understand sophisticated finance. I think he's learning that underestimating people is expensive. 3 months later, I was back at Sarah's house, though it wasn't her house anymore. She'd sold it, split the proceeds with Marcus as part of the divorce settlement, and bought a smaller but more manageable townhouse in Kitsilano. It was close to the kids' school, had a small yard for them to play in, and cost half what the old place did. Emma and Jack were in the living room, doing homework at the coffee table I'd bought them. Their new clothes fit properly. Their shoes had no holes. Sarah had gone back to work part-time at an environmental consulting firm, and she looked lighter somehow, like someone had lifted a weight she'd been carrying. "Dad," she said, as we sat in her new kitchen, considerably smaller than the old one, but somehow more comfortable. "I want to ask you something." "Shoot." "The investor presentation. When Marcus saw you there, you planned that, didn't you? You arranged it so he'd have to watch you walk into a meeting he was being excluded from." "I won't lie to you. Yes, I planned it. I wanted him to see that the father-in-law he looked down on, the man he had security escort out of the building, was worth more than he'd ever be." "Was that petty?" "Probably. But I'm human, and he'd hurt you. Sometimes pettiness is satisfying." She smiled, and it was a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen from her in years. "I'm glad you did it. I'm glad he knows. I hope every time he thinks about losing everything, he remembers that moment." Marcus did lose everything. He was convicted of fraud and embezzlement, sentenced to 3 years in prison. His mistress left him before the trial even started. His parents paid his legal fees, but made it clear they were disappointed and disgusted. He declared bankruptcy from his cell. The last I heard, he was working in the prison kitchen, earning $17 a day, thinking about all the choices that led him there. As for me, I went back to my bungalow in Calgary, my old truck, my flannel shirts. I set up a trust fund for Sarah that would ensure she and the kids would be comfortable for life. I established a scholarship fund at NATE for students from low-income families studying petroleum engineering. I kept investing, kept growing my wealth, but I kept living like I always had. Because wealth, real wealth, isn't about showing people what you have. It's about having the freedom to help the people you love when they need it. It's about having options, security, peace of mind. It's about being able to walk into a room full of people who underestimated you and proving them wrong with facts, not flash. Marcus thought wealth was about the BMW, the designer suits, the expensive watch. He thought it was about convincing other people you were successful. He was wrong. Wealth is about waking up without debt hanging over your head. It's about knowing your children have opportunities. It's about having the resources to protect your family when they're being hurt. It's about building something real instead of building an image. Marcus built an image. I built an empire. And when the smoke cleared, only one of those things was still standing. Sometimes I think about that moment in the Pinnacle Tower lobby, when Marcus called security to escort me out. I think about the smirks from his colleagues, the laughter, the assumption that I was just some confused old man who'd wandered in from the street. I could have told them who I was right then. Could have pulled out my phone and shown them my investment portfolio, my net worth, my credentials. Could have humiliated Marcus on the spot. But I didn't. Because patience is power. Strategy beats impulse. And the satisfaction of watching the truth reveal itself naturally is worth more than any moment of instant vindication. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I served mine at exactly 2 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon, in a corner office with a view of False Creek, with $15 million and a bespoke suit. And it was delicious.